The Chicago airport was alive with its usual frenzy on that Friday morning. Travelers rushed to their gates, announcements buzzed overhead, and the scent of coffee and jet fuel filled the air. Andrew Thompson, a sharply dressed businessman, navigated the terminal with an air of practiced ease. His tailored suit fit impeccably, his polished leather shoes clicked rhythmically against the tiles, and his gold watch gleamed under the artificial lights, a symbol of his hard-earned success. Yet beneath the polished exterior, Andrew was a man haunted. His success had come at a cost, one he rarely allowed himself to think about. As he approached his gate, his mind lingered on the monotony of another business trip. Then, a sudden flash of movement caught his attention. A woman with familiar chestnut-brown hair strolled by, her hand clasped around that of a young boy. Andrew's steps faltered, his breath hitching. "Sarah," he whispered, his voice breaking under the weight of the name. The boy turned slightly, revealing a face that was an unmistakable reflection of Andrew's own childhood. The piercing green eyes and unruly blonde hair mirrored his younger self. Andrew's heart raced, his mind tumbling back to a decade ago, when he'd walked away from the life they might have shared. Overcome by a wave of emotion, Andrew abandoned his gate, briefcase forgotten as he plunged into the bustling crowd. "Sarah," he called out, his voice cracking, but the sea of travelers swallowed them whole. For the first time in years, Andrew felt utterly powerless. 10 years earlier, Andrew hadn't always been the man people admire today. A decade ago, he was a struggling salesman, sharing a cramped apartment with Sarah, a school teacher who saw the world through a lens of hope and simplicity. Their life was modest but filled with love, late-night talks, shared dreams, and laughter echoing through their tiny home. But Andrew wasn't content. The relentless grind of bills and missed opportunities gnawed at him. Sarah, ever the optimist, would say, "Why do we need more? We have everything we need." Andrew's silence always betrayed him. When Vanessa, a charismatic business executive, entered his life, she seemed to embody everything Andrew craved. "You deserve more," she'd whispered during their stolen conversations. "With me, you could have it all." Her promises of success and influence became an intoxicating escape. Over time, Andrew grew distant, consumed by ambition. The rift between him and Sarah widened. One night, after Sarah excitedly shared news of her acceptance into a master's program, Andrew barely looked up from his phone. "You don't care, do you?" she asked softly. "It's not that simple, Sarah," he replied, exasperation lacing his voice. A month later, Andrew packed his bags. As Sarah slept, he left a note on the kitchen table. "I can't do this anymore. I need more from life than you can give me. Please don't try to find me." Unbeknownst to Andrew, Sarah had discovered she was pregnant just hours before. Sarah's resilience. The betrayal shattered Sarah. For weeks, she alternated between tears and steely resolve. When Ethan was born, her despair gave way to determination. The moment she held him, she made a promise. "We'll be okay. I'll make sure of it." Life was anything but easy. Sarah juggled teaching and tutoring jobs, often collapsing into bed after long days. But each time Ethan smiled, she found the strength to keep going. Over the years, she built a modest but stable life for them. When Ethan grew old enough to ask about his father, Sarah chose her words carefully. "Your dad had to go away," she said gently, sparing him the pain of knowing the truth. By the time Ethan turned 10, Sarah had found peace. She had a steady job, a cozy home, and had started dating Mark, a kind-hearted man who treated Ethan as his own. Life wasn't extravagant, but it was full of love. The search. The sight of Sarah and Ethan at the airport haunted Andrew. He couldn't shake the image of the boy's face, the way it mirrored his own. Desperation gnawed at him. Could it really be his son? Andrew hired Frank, a trusted private investigator. "I need to find someone," he said. "Sarah Ellis." Frank's tone was cautious. "You're digging up old ghosts, huh?" Andrew hesitated. It's personal. Days of waiting followed. Andrew stayed in a hotel, unable to focus on anything but the what-ifs. What if Sarah refused to see him? What if Ethan wasn't his? And worst of all, what if they were better off without him? 3 days later, Frank called. I found her. The reunion. Sarah was seated in a quiet park with Ethan, watching him sketch the world around him. His drawings were vivid, full of life, a testament to his mother's unwavering love. Andrew approached hesitantly, his heart pounding. Sarah, he said, his voice trembling. She turned, her eyes widening in shock. Andrew. Ethan looked up curiously, his green eyes locking onto Andrew's. I had to find you, Andrew said. I made a mistake, a terrible mistake. Sarah's expression hardened. You think you can just show up after all this time? Andrew's gaze fell. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I saw you in him. He gestured toward Ethan. Is he? Sarah nodded, her voice steady but firm. Yes, he's your son. Ethan frowned. You're my dad. The weight of the moment crushed Andrew. I am. And I'm so sorry, Ethan. For everything. Redemption. Andrew didn't expect Sarah to welcome him back, and she didn't. But she agreed to let him get to know Ethan on her terms. Over time, Andrew began to rebuild the bridge he had burned. He attended Ethan's soccer games, marveled at his sketches, and told him stories of his own childhood. Slowly, Ethan warmed to him. For Sarah, the process was harder. But as she watched Andrew show up for Ethan time and time again, she saw glimpses of the man she had once loved. One evening, as they all sat together at Ethan's art show, Sarah turned to Andrew. You hurt us deeply. But if you're here for Ethan, really here, maybe we can find a way forward. Andrew nodded, tears in his eyes. I'll spend the rest of my life proving that I am. The lesson. Andrew's journey was a stark reminder that success means little without love and connection. The life he had once abandoned was the one that ultimately gave him purpose. For Sarah, it was a testament to resilience and the power of unconditional love. And for Ethan, it was proof that even broken families can find healing. Life isn't about avoiding mistakes, it's about learning from them and making amends. True wealth lies in the relationships we nurture and the love we share. Rebuilding bridges. The days following Andrew's reunion with Sarah and Ethan were a mixture of hope, awkwardness, and uncertainty. For Andrew, stepping back into their lives was like treading on fragile glass. Each step forward came with the fear of breaking something irreparably. Sarah, guarded and protective of Ethan, set clear boundaries. If you're serious about being in his life, it's going to take time, she said. Ethan has grown up with Mark as a father figure. He doesn't need more confusion. Mark. The name hung heavily in the air. Though Andrew had no right to be jealous, the thought of another man raising his son left him with an ache he couldn't shake. But he swallowed his pride and agreed. This time, he would do things on Sarah's terms. The first steps. Ethan was hesitant around Andrew at first. To him, Andrew was a stranger, a man whose face was familiar only because it resembled his own. Their first meeting alone was at a small diner near the park. Ethan sipped his milkshake, his green eyes studying Andrew intently. Why did you leave us? He asked bluntly. Andrew's throat tightened. He'd been bracing for the question, but hearing it out loud stung more than he expected. I made a mistake, he said, his voice low. I was selfish and scared. I thought I needed to find something bigger, something better. But I didn't realize that I already had everything I needed. Ethan frowned, clearly weighing Andrew's words. So, you didn't want us? No, Andrew said quickly, his voice firm. It wasn't that I didn't want you. I didn't even know about you back then. If I had, I would have never left. Ethan stared at him for a long moment before giving a small nod. Okay. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was a start. Learning to be a father. Andrew quickly learned that being a father was far more challenging than closing million-dollar deals. He began showing up for Ethan in every way he could, attending soccer games, helping with homework, and taking him to art classes. One afternoon, Andrew picked Ethan up after school. They walked to the park, where Ethan pulled out his sketch pad and began to draw. "What are you working on?" Andrew asked, sitting beside him. Ethan tilted the pad to reveal a half-finished sketch of a city skyline. The detail was impressive for someone his age. "Wow," Andrew said, genuinely impressed. "You're really talented." Ethan shrugged. "Mom says drawing helps me express what I'm feeling." Andrew nodded, a pang of guilt hitting him. "Your mom's a smart woman." "She is," Ethan said, his voice matter-of-fact. "Mark helps me too. He's really nice." Andrew's stomach churned at the mention of Mark, but he forced a smile. "I'm glad you have someone like him in your life." Ethan glanced at Andrew. "Do you not like him?" Andrew hesitated, then shook his head. "It's not about liking or not liking him. It's just hard for me to know I wasn't there when you needed a dad. But I'm here now, and I'm going to do my best." Ethan gave him a small smile. "Okay." Sarah's perspective. For Sarah, watching Andrew re-enter Ethan's life was a bittersweet experience. She'd spent years shielding Ethan from the pain of Andrew's absence, and now she had to watch him try to make amends. Mark noticed her conflicted feelings one evening as they sat on the porch. "You're still in love with him, aren't you?" he asked gently. Sarah looked at him, startled. "What? No, Mark, that's not." "You don't have to explain," Mark interrupted, his voice calm. "I've always known a part of you never stopped loving him. And that's okay. What matters to me is that you're happy and Ethan's happy." Sarah blinked back tears. "Mark, you've been incredible to us. I don't know how I would have gotten through these years without you." Mark smiled, though there was a trace of sadness in his eyes. "I love you, Sarah. And I love Ethan. But maybe this is your chance to figure out what you really want. Just promise me you'll be honest, with yourself and with me." Confronting the past. As months passed, Andrew continued to earn Ethan's trust. They began spending weekends together, exploring museums and going on small adventures. But one thing still loomed over Andrew: his unresolved feelings for Sarah. One evening, after dropping Ethan off, Andrew lingered at Sarah's doorstep. "Can we talk?" he asked. Sarah crossed her arms, her expression wary. "About what?" "About us," Andrew said. "I know I don't have the right to ask for anything after what I did, but I need you to know that leaving you was the biggest mistake of my life." Sarah looked at him, her eyes filled with a mixture of hurt and longing. "Do you think you can just come back and fix everything with a few apologies? It's not that simple, Andrew." "I know it's not," he said, his voice steady. "But I also know that I've never stopped loving you. And if there's even a small chance that we could find our way back to each other, I'm willing to do whatever it takes." Sarah's eyes filled with tears, but she shook her head. "You don't get to waltz back into my life and expect me to forget everything. You left me, Andrew. You left us." "I'm not asking you to forget," he said. "I'm asking for a chance to prove that I've changed. Not just for Ethan, but for you." Sarah looked away, the battle between her heart and her head evident. "I need time," she said finally. The unexpected ending. Months turned into a year. Andrew remained steadfast, building his relationship with Ethan and earning Sarah's trust little by little. Sarah eventually broke things off with Mark, not because of Andrew, but because she realized she needed time to heal and figure out what she truly wanted. One sunny afternoon, the three of them, Andrew, Sarah, and Ethan, sat together at Ethan's art exhibition. As they admired Ethan's work, Andrew leaned closer to Sarah. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" she asked. "For giving me a second chance," he replied. Sarah smiled softly. "You've come a long way, Andrew. But this time, don't let us down." "I won't," he promised. As they watched Ethan beam with pride, Sarah realized that while the past couldn't be changed, the future was theirs to shape. And for the first time in years, she felt a glimmer of hope that maybe, just maybe, they could find happiness again, together. Redemption isn't about erasing past mistakes. It's about owning them, learning from them, and doing better. Andrew's journey reminded him that success means nothing without love and connection. For Sarah, it was a testament to her strength and resilience. And for Ethan, it was a lesson in forgiveness and the power of family. Sometimes, the hardest paths lead to the most beautiful destinations, and while the scars of the past remain, they also serve as reminders of how far you've come. A new beginning. The first year of rebuilding their lives together was a delicate dance of hope, fear, and growth. Andrew was learning how to be a father, not just biologically, but emotionally, a presence, a protector, and a partner in Ethan's journey. For Sarah, it was a year of confronting the scars left by Andrew's departure while cautiously letting him prove his sincerity. Despite their progress, there were moments when old wounds resurfaced, threatening to unravel the fragile connections they had begun to rebuild. Each of them had to grapple with their past and decide if the future they were building was worth the risk. Father and son. One crisp fall morning, Andrew picked Ethan up for their now regular Saturday outing. Ethan was unusually quiet, his sketchpad clutched tightly to his chest. "What's on your mind, buddy?" Andrew asked as they walked through the park. Ethan hesitated before holding out his sketchpad. "I drew this for you." Andrew opened the pad to find a beautifully detailed drawing of their family. Ethan in the center, flanked by Sarah and Andrew, all holding hands. Above them, the words "Family Forever" were scrawled in Ethan's neat handwriting. Andrew's throat tightened as he stared at the drawing. "Ethan, this is amazing," he said, his voice trembling. "Thank you." Ethan looked up at him, his green eyes filled with vulnerability. "Do you promise you won't leave again?" The weight of Ethan's question hit Andrew like a punch to the gut. He knelt down so they were eye level, placing his hands gently on Ethan's shoulders. "I promise," Andrew said firmly. "No matter what happens, I'll always be here for you." Ethan's face lit up with a tentative smile. "Okay," he said softly. Sarah's journey. While Andrew focused on his relationship with Ethan, Sarah wrestled with her own emotions. She wanted to believe Andrew had changed, but the fear of being hurt again lingered. One evening, as she sat on the couch reviewing lesson plans, there was a knock at the door. Andrew stood there, holding a bouquet of sunflowers, her favorite. "What's this?" Sarah asked, her voice tinged with suspicion. Andrew shifted nervously. "I wanted to talk to you. About us." She stepped aside, letting him in. They sat across from each other at the dining table, the weight of unspoken words hanging heavy in the air. "I know I've hurt you in ways I can never fully make up for," Andrew began. "I'm not the same man I was 10 years ago. Back then, I let my fear and ambition blind me to what really mattered. I can't undo the past, but I want to spend the rest of my life proving that I'm here for you and Ethan." Sarah studied him, her expression unreadable. "Andrew, it's not just about what you want. I've spent the last decade building a life for Ethan and me, a life that's stable and safe. I can't let anything jeopardize that." "I understand," Andrew said, "but I'm not asking you to take me back overnight. I just want a chance to earn your trust again, one step at a time." Sarah's gaze softened, but she didn't respond right away. Instead, she stood and walked to the window, staring out at the darkened street. "Andrew, I want to believe you," she said finally. "But trusting you again, it's going to take time." "I'll wait as long as it takes," Andrew promised, facing the truth. As time passed, Andrew's consistent presence began to chip away at Sarah's walls. He showed up for Ethan's school events, joined them for family dinners, and even volunteered at Sarah's school fundraiser. Slowly, the life they once shared began to take shape again, different, but no less meaningful. But there was still one conversation Andrew and Sarah hadn't had, the truth about the night he left. One rainy evening, after Ethan had gone to bed, Sarah and Andrew sat in the living room. The sound of raindrops tapping against the windows filled the silence between them. "I need to ask you something," Sarah said, breaking the quiet. Andrew looked at her, his expression serious. "Anything." "Why did you really leave that night?" she asked, her voice steady but tinged with vulnerability. "Was it me? Was I not enough?" Andrew's heart ached at the pain in her voice. "It was never about you," he said softly. "You were everything I could have ever wanted. But I was too blinded by my own insecurities and ambition to see it. I thought I needed to prove something to the world, to myself. And in doing that, I lost the most important thing in my life. You." Tears filled Sarah's eyes, but she didn't look away. "You could have talked to me, Andrew. We could have faced it together." "I know," he said, his voice breaking. "And I'll regret not doing that for the rest of my life. But I'm here now, and I want to make things right." Sarah nodded, wiping her eyes. "I believe you," she said. "But believing isn't the same as trusting. That's something you'll have to earn. A new kind of family." Months turned into a year, and slowly, trust began to take root. Sarah and Andrew attended therapy together, where they confronted the pain of their past and learned how to communicate better. Ethan, meanwhile, flourished with both parents actively involved in his life. One sunny afternoon, they all gathered in the backyard for a barbecue. Mark, who had remained a close friend to Sarah and a positive presence in Ethan's life, was there too. As they sat around the table, laughing and sharing stories, Ethan looked around at the people who loved him. "I think we're a pretty cool family," he said with a grin. Andrew and Sarah exchanged a look, a silent acknowledgement of how far they had come. "We are," Sarah agreed, her smile genuine. The unexpected proposal. On the anniversary of the day Andrew first saw Sarah and Ethan at the airport, he planned something special. After dinner, Andrew stood and cleared his throat. "There's something I'd like to say," he began, his eyes locking with Sarah's. "Sarah, you gave me the greatest gift in the world when you brought Ethan into this life, and even after everything I put you through, you found it in your heart to give me another chance. I don't deserve you, but I love you, with everything I have, and I promise to spend the rest of my life proving that to you." He pulled a small velvet box from his pocket and knelt before her. "Sarah, will you marry me?" Again. Tears streamed down Sarah's face as she looked at the man she once loved, the man who had broken her heart, but also worked tirelessly to mend it. "Yes," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. Ethan cheered, running over to hug them both. "Finally," he exclaimed, making everyone laugh. "Life doesn't always give us second chances, but when it does, it's up to us to make the most of them." Andrew's journey from abandonment to redemption, Sarah's resilience and strength, and Ethan's ability to forgive taught them all that love isn't perfect. It's messy, challenging, and sometimes painful. But when nurtured, it can heal even the deepest wounds. In the end, true success isn't measured by wealth or power. It's found in the love we give, the relationships we cherish, and the courage to rebuild what was once broken. A life rebuilt. A year after Sarah said yes to Andrew's heartfelt proposal, they stood in the backyard of their modest home, surrounded by family and friends. The ceremony was simple and intimate, just like the life they had rebuilt. Ethan beamed as he stood between them, holding their hands. This wasn't just a celebration of love. It was a testament to resilience, forgiveness, and second chances. A new chapter. Andrew's journey to redemption was far from perfect, but his commitment to making amends never wavered. He learned that love wasn't about grand gestures or expensive gifts. It was about showing up, every single day. For Sarah, letting Andrew back into her life wasn't easy, but it was a choice rooted in her own growth. She had learned to set boundaries, to value herself, and to trust again, slowly and cautiously. Ethan, the heart of their story, thrived. He grew up knowing that families aren't defined by perfection, but by the love and effort people invest in one another. Life doesn't follow a perfect script. It's full of mistakes, regrets, and moments when we fail those we love. But it's also full of opportunities for growth, redemption, and the chance to make things right. Andrew's story teaches us that success isn't about wealth or status. It's about the relationships we nurture. Sarah's strength reminds us that forgiveness is a gift, not just to others but to ourselves. And Ethan's ability to embrace love from a father who had once abandoned him shows that healing is possible, even in the face of deep wounds. No one can rewrite the past, but the future is unwritten, a blank page waiting for us to fill it with courage, compassion, and love. As the evening sky turned golden and laughter filled the air, Andrew, Sarah, and Ethan sat together, watching the sun set on a day that marked not just their union, but the triumph of hope over despair. In the end, they weren't just a family. They were a testament to the power of second chances, and a reminder that it's never too late to choose love, to choose forgiveness, and to choose each other. This concludes the story. Thank you for watching until the end. I hope you found it enjoyable. If you did, please consider liking the video and sharing it with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and activate the notification bell for more captivating stories. Have a great day.